On the day of the long-awaited honey harvest, the bees were buzzing with excitement.
My husband Matthew calls me mommy rather than you.
He left me behind and went on our trip with his mother, Lucy. My mother. My husband's true identity was revealed. My name is Sophia Simpson. I am a high school teacher. I have lived my life solely through until now, and it was very rewarding. My students grew and went on to paths that were beyond what I could have imagined for them. However, since I was so proud of my first book, I haven't been able to get married. Recently, I celebrated my 38th birthday and began to feel desperate to get married.
Sigh. My work is very fulfilling, but I'm worried about living alone for the life.
All of my friends around me are blessed families and lead fulfilling lives with kind husbands and children. At the high school where I work, the students who are maturing from childhood to adulthood, and they are spending their lively atmosphere. Seeing the happiness of the people, my admiration for marriage and family life increased day by day. I have never had an active love life. I wasn't really interested in it or enjoyed working more.
Now is the time to be brave.
Wanting for getting married and star family, I made up my mind and attend a matching party to meet my partner. Then, there I met Matthew, who later my husband. Matthew is 36 years old, which means he's about my age. Although Matthew only worked as a temp worker and had very little income, I was attracted to his honest and calm personality.
Would you be willing to go out with a marriage in the near future?
Yes, I would. I look forward to going on dates.
Although it had only been such a short time since we'd just met, I felt that he was the one for me. So then I started going out with Matthew with marriage in mind. On our dates, Matthew was always very attentive to me. He always plans our dates and even goes out of his way to make sure we have a great time together. He checks on me by asking if I'm okay or if I need anything. As he checks on me, he will casually take my bags from me, which makes me feel cared for. I was really happy when he made a reservation for me at a restaurant that serves delicious sweets that I like. I think Matthew is the nicest man I met. However, as I went on more and more with Matthew, there were times when little uncomfortable with him.
During our dates, he would often talk about his mother, saying, "My mom is..." Almost always he would say, "I'm just trying to reassure my mom."
And then he would call his mom to H her, which caught my attention.
I can understand if it's a little thing, but I wonder if an adult man would do that.
I couldn't tell Matthew this, but when he said mom, I even enjoyed our dates, for that moment became disappointing.
Furthermore, I felt a little disappointed that he would always end each date saying, "I do want my mom to worry."
He would end our dates early by saying, "I have to go home." Matthew is a nice man, but I'm not sure if he really cares about his mother, and I wonder if he's the one for me. Sometimes those kinds of thoughts can come to my mind, and I become worried.
But I decided to see the good side situation, thinking 3. Matthew is, who knows how to take care of people.
Matthew is always kind to me and takes care of me. I began to think that the word mom our dates was an expression of his and protection. And I began to feel to him for saying the word mom. Then 6 months after we started dating.
"Will you marry me?"
Yes, of course. I'm looking forward to living with you for the rest of my life.
Matthew proposed to me and we decided married. After our engagement, I visited my mother-in-law, Lucy, for the first time to greet her. I wondered what kind of woman Lucy was that her mother had to talk about her like that.
Lucy said, "Welcome to my home, Sophia. I'm glad you're finally here."
She welcomed me warmly with a smile. After talking to her, I found her to be a very kind and gentle person. When I finally met Lucy, I could see why Matthew spoke so highly of her. Shortly after greeting Lucy, Matthew officiated our marriage certificate. At this point, I asked Matthew a question that had been on my mind.
Matthew looked hesitant for a moment, then said, "If you want to have the ceremony, yeah, sure. But to be honest, I don't think there's any need to have a wedding ceremony. Isn't it so hard to prepare for a ceremony? Even on my wedding day, I still have to take care of my friend and acquaintances. Don't think I have the capacity to do it all alone. Instead of having a wedding ceremony, I would rather spend my time with only you on trips and doing fun things together."
I totally agreed with Matthew's idea. Besides, at my age, I was a little to walk in front of my friends in a dress now. I told Matthew an idea that I had been thinking about for a while.
I honestly don't think we need to wedding either. Why don't we have a wedding ceremony, but instead, let's plan an amazing honeymoon? We'll go to places we've never been, some great memories just for the two. How do you feel about that idea?
Matthew perked up and said, "That's a great idea. Let's make it the best honeymoon ever."
He said in such a happy voice and as my idea. From then on, Matthew and I began to plan our grand non-moon. We decided to split the travel expenses between us, but since my income was less than Matthew's, I paid more than him.
"I'm sorry for putting the burden on you to pay more than necessary. I don't mean to sound rude, but could you let me choose the travel destination and plan your trip?"
Are you sure about this? Since it's both our honeymoon, should we discuss and plan it together?
Matthew looked troubled and said, "I'm sorry you paid so much for me. I just wanted a chance to make up for what I did. Besides, it's not our honeymoon, and I have a surprise for you."
I didn't think Matthew was too bothered about the travel expenses. I was a little resistant to Matthew's idea because I wanted the two of us to do things together and prepare for our honeymoon. However, I thought by leaving every detail up to Matthew would make him feel less intimidated. This honeymoon trip. Then I'll take care of all the arrangements, and that way he can just relax and enjoy himself. Besides, what is the surprise he is preparing for me? I got excited about it, and it seemed like the best idea to leave all the prep to Matthew.
Sure, what do you need prepared? I'm really looking forward to seeing sassy ass.
With a big smile on my face, I agreed to Matthew's idea. And on the day of the honeymoon, I was very impatient. I didn't see any of my luggage for honeymoon.
Matthew said, I pack your luggage for the trip. I know you had a hard day at work, so get some rest before your trip."
I took advantage of his kind words early yesterday. What did Matthew do with your luggage? I wonder if he has prepared it properly. I asked Matthew, who is still looking a bit sleepy.
Good morning, Matthew. Thank you for all your preparations today. By the way, where are my luggage from my trip? I can't find them.
Matthew looked a little annoyed, but had come to his senses. He took a breath, sigh, and began to speak. "Actually, I didn't prepare any luju.
Since I didn't understand what he was saying, I looked at him with a blank stare.
What do you mean by saying that you didn't bring my luggage? Our honeymoon is today, remember?
You are not going to the honeymoon. I want you to stay home on rest day. I want you to stay home for rest day."
Matthew, I don't understand what you're saying. Are you saying that our honeymoon day has changed? If that's the case, I wish you would have told me about it in advance.
"No, I don't think so. I've decided to go on my non-moon, Mommy."
I was taken aback. I have heard Matthew talk about his mom many times before, but I've never heard him call his mom Mommy before. How could a man in his late 30s call himself mommy? Did Matthew just say he's going on a honeymoon with his mommy? There were just too many things I see understand, as my brain was scrambling for word to Matthew.
What are you saying?
When I started planning and for our honeymoon, I thought this trip would be more fun with my mom than going on a trip with your dad.
Let's make memories on our grand non-moon with all of us. Are you saying it was all a lie?
That's not what I meant. At first, I wanted to make our honeymoon a great one, just the two of us. But as I planned the trip, I started realizing that going on this honeymoon with my mommy would make it even better.
I still don't understand what you're saying. Do you have any idea how much non-serving is going on? I've always felt a little uncomfort. Before with you, whenever you're tall, your mother, and now you call your mother mommy. Don't you think that strange thing man in his late 30s to call his moth mommy?
I finally exploded at the fact that Matthew was in love with his mother. Matthew, perhaps, didn't want that to be pointed out, but finally got pointed out by me, and suddenly he changed his attitude towards me.
Shut up. Stop saying such thing. Of course, I would rather go on my honeymoon with my mommy than you.
Matthew yelled at me angrily with H, all red, a face he had never shown before.
I want to take mommy on this trip than you. Why can't you understand this feeling?
I was very disappointed that Matthew didn't let me go to the home which I had been looking forward to visiting. I wanted to say something back, but went blank, and there were no words of my mouth. Matthew saw me standing there, and he interpreted it as my agreeing to go on a hike with him. Since Matthew thought I agreed to his idea, his face became gentle again.
Thank you for understanding.
As he said this, he packed up his one get, ready to leave the house.
I don't want to keep mommy waiting. Better get going. Don't worry, I'll be back with lots of souvenirs, so please look forward for...
I really wanted to stop him by saying go, but at the same time, I did. And see his face right now, and I didn't want to talk to him.
Besides, right now all I could think of was revenging him for what he had done.
I just said fine and saw him leave the house.
As soon as Matthew left the house, Lucy answered the phone right away, kind and warm voice, like always.
Lucy, there's actually something I need to tell you.
What a great time to call, because I want to talk and say thank you to you. What are you talking about? Sophia, did you give me today's itinerary? I know you are newlyweds and want to enjoy your time as a couple. So thank you for even caring about time like this.
I didn't understand what she was saying. I was a little confused. There seems to be a misunderstanding between me and Lucy. I bet Matthew did not tell how the gifted to Lucy. Lucy's voice sounded very excited on the phone. I could tell how happy she was. I was uncomfortable with the thought of telling her the truth, but I had no other choice but to tell her the truth. I braced myself and told her the truth.
Lucy, did you ever ask Matthew how up with the idea of going on to this?
From Matthew, I heard that even though we're just newlyweds, you wanted me, Matthew, to goon a trip just the two show gratitude. 0.
I knew it.
I discovered that Matthew had been lying to Lucy and telling her half-truths for convenience. Matthew's cowardly tactics made me and more angry. However, Lucy, who was not told of, is also the victim. I decided to calmly continue cooking before Matthew arrived at Lucy's house.
Actually, this trip between Matthews was not originally for a Mother's Day gift.
What are you saying, Sophia?
Actually, Matthew and I were supposed to be on our honeymoon today. Instead of having a wedding ceremony, we decided to go on an amazing non-stop honeymoon, the best memories, just the two of us. Since I covered most of the travel, Matthew took charge of making arrangements and preparations for the trip.
Lucy perhaps sensed a bad premonition, her mood changing from excitement to apprehension as she listened to me.
Until today, I was very much looking forward to our grand honeymoon. But then today, Matthew told me that he would rather go on a trip with you than his friends.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe this.
Lucy sounded very shocked over that.
I honestly couldn't understand why anyone would want to go on this honeymoon. However, I couldn't stop him from leaving the house. Lucy, that's why I need your help.
Lucy sounded like she was thinking over the phone. Matthew is just a kind person who does what's best for his mother. However, that excessive kindness towards his mother encouraged him to commit a foolish betrayal of his newly wedded wife. Lucy is an intelligent person who knows what's right and wrong. After a moment, Lucy opened her mouth.
I'm so sorry that Matthew gave you a hard time. I have a great idea.
Lucy and I started to discuss ways Matthew. It seemed that Matthew arrived at Lou House shortly after our punishment finalized. I hung up the phone and started pray revenge on Matthew. And so begins the honeymoon that Matt I will never forget for the rest of my life. The honeymoon begins with an unexpected surprise for Matthew.
When Matthew went to pick Lucy up at Lucy suddenly told him, I'm not fee well.
Mommy, are you all right? Forget the trip. Let's go to the house.
Matthew says anxiously to Lucy, who without a care.
When you're around me, it seems like I feel a lot worse. Stay outside until I tell you to come.
Matthew was upset and concerned by his mother's response, which was not gentle. But he did as she asked and went outside to help her recover. Lucy was able to keep Matthew waiting in the house. This is part of our punishment plan. Then Lucy called her husband, Sean, Matthew's older brother George, and my parents, Ron and Chelsea. A few hours later,
Lucy told Matthew, I'm feeling mud. Let's go on this trip.
Even though the schedule of the trip behind Matthew was still excited and happy. Just because he was able to go on a trip with his favorite mommy, Matthew had no idea what was happening to him. Matthew was shocked when he arrived destination. That is no surprise. It was supposed to be just Lucy and her friend on the trip, but as soon as they arrived at the airport, they saw Sean, George, Ron, Chelsea, and decided not to wait for him.
What the hell is this? Why are you guys here?
I invited them, Matthew.
Matthew looked shocked.
But why? We talked about enjoying the trip, just the two of us.
Sophia told me everything before you picked me up.
Matthew glared sharply at me.
Why did you have to tell her? I told her a story so she wouldn't have to worry about it. I even made the story sound like you suggested so that you would be my mommy, you know.
I was taken aback by Matthew's incomprehensible statement.
You're the one who lied to everyone, right?
This is not the honeymoon I planned.
Matthew looked extremely annoyed that his travel plans with Lucy had been ruined. Does he not feel sorry for me?
Then Lucy said, That's enough.
She scolded Matthew.
If I get the trip with you, then be a honeymoon from the first place.
Matthew seemed quite upset by Lucy's scolding. His angry expression from earlier, he now looks as if he is about to...
Did you think I would be happy with you doing this to me? You just got married to her and already you're making your wife sad. I thought you were a kind and sincere person. I was very proud of you, don't you understand? And yet, I can't believe you lied to wife and me to organize a trip like...
Following Lucy's comments, Sean Ron started to speak to Matthew.
You are pathetic. Don't you make your wife sad when she married you?
You've always been blind to your mother's faults, but this is way over the line, Matthew. This is an opportunity for you to unusual obsession with mother.
I thought you were a very sincere, nice young man, but doing something like this, I can't trust my precious daughter as much as you. Maybe you should rethink about your marriage.
Matthew was getting smaller and the other family members kept attacking. No one here was in the mood to enjoy anymore. Although Matthew had thoroughly planned for this non-moon, the trip was canceled and we all had to return. I decided to return to my parents because I wanted to have my own time from Matthew. The next day, Matthew and Lucy came me at my parents' place.
I am so sorry. It was a very stupid thing I did when I look back on it. I hope you can forgive me.
Matthew gets down on his knees and apologizes, begging for forgiveness. I couldn't respond right away because I was afraid that Matthew might betray me. Seeing my reaction, Lucy started to gently laugh.
I am apologizing to you on his behalf. I am so sorry for the terrible thing has done to you, Sophia. I will make sure that all of your travel expenses will be repaid by Matthew. I understand how you feel that you longer trust Matthew. I have spoiled him so much that he has been able to leave me. I will stop contacting Matthew frequently and keep a healthy distance from him. Promise?
Oh no! Keeping a distance, that's too much.
Matthew gave Lucy his pleading look.
Haven't you learned your lesson yet? That's enough. If you have time for me, take care woman who married you instead.
Matthew was very sad and started to Lucy, whom he loved, took her distance him. I still felt a little guilty for making Matt cry, but Lucy helped me get revenge in the way that I wanted, and she was very fair with me. For Lucy, I decided to believe in Matthew just want more time and move on forward together as husband and wife. Today, my husband is doing the house chores and devoting himself to me, Lucy. Advice: take good care of the woman who came to be your wife. Although we had some problems at first, we are now very happily married.